Good morning, everyone. My name is Soham Patra, and today I have been given the golden opportunity to talk about undoubtedly the greatest author during our freedom struggle. Yes, I'm going to talk about Rabindranath Tagore. Now, I won't waste your time talking about Rabindranath's life and everything because I'm pretty sure that every mouth that has chanted a national anthem knows about him. Instead, I would like to spread some light and summarize or analyze some of his most well-known literary masterpieces. At first, I would like to talk about his short story Kabuliwala. Kabuliwala is the story of an Afghanistani Pathan who goes to Calcutta to sell dry fruits. There, he creates a bond with the narrator's daughter, Mimi. Now, due to a rough encounter with a customer, he is sent to jail. After 10 years, when he is released, he goes back to meet Mimi, who was preparing for her matrimonial rituals, and sadly, she doesn't remember him. Now, it's a bit of an unsatisfying story at the end for amateur readers like me because we forget that it was written during a time where India was under Britishers. The British rule was being applied in India and they were ruthless towards Indian. They were discriminatory and overall very cruel towards all our Indian brothers and sisters. This was sort of a passive protestance against the Britisher to tell them that every person, despite their nation, creed, gender, religion, needs love and compassion. Every person shows love and compassion. This was a beautiful story if you could understand the deeper meanings which even my tiny brain couldn't decode. Now, the second short story I would like to talk about is The Postmaster. The postmaster is the story of a man who is city bred, very bad at socializing, egoistic, and arrogant. He is sent to a rural place to work due to his job transfer. There, due to some incidents, he starts spending his supper with a 13-year-old orphan girl called Ratan. Ratan started calling the postmaster as Dada, Dada being the Bengali word for older brother. Now, a time when Dada was very sick, Ratan took care of him like a mother. She stood awake for her all the night just so that she could take care of his needs. After that, we find that Dada wasn't very suitable in this rural culture. He was one of those people who needed cities and buildings and tall roads and scrapers to watch and write songs, to see and write, to get inspiration for poems. He needed buildings and structures except for luscious green landscapes. And he asks his job so that they can transfer him back to the city, but the job declares his offer as invalid, so he resigns from his job. Now, to go back to job hunting, he thinks of moving back to Calcutta, which was the nearest city due to village at that time. And Ratan, the 13-year-old orphan girl, pleads him to take her with him, but he laughs it off. At the end, we find him giving his whole salary to Ratan, but Ratan is heartbroken to find the fact that his Dada, the person he took care for so long, is not returning his affection to her. It's a very sad story. Most of his stories were actually very sad, and it told us how difficult migrating a job is, importantly, but more than that, it told us about orphans, how their life is filled with meetings and partings. They knew nothing about the philosophies of life, but they still believe each other like they do when someone takes care of them. And even when someone breaks their heart, they don't feel angry, they just feel sad that they wouldn't meet their affectionate, their favorite people for their lives forever. The next story I would like to, it's not even a story, it's a novel which I would like to summarize, is called Gora. Now, I can't summarize Gora. That book is extremely complicated, but the concerns and issues presented there are applicable to this modern world. Gora, the main protagonist of the story, Gora, is a 6 feet tall man with strong hands and a deep and rough voice, and an extremely fair complexion, as in contrast with the normal Bengali complexion. He was an orthodox Hindu. He believed that by collecting all the Hindu societies, we could get independence from the Britisher, And he had a friend who was also orthodox called Binoy, and Binoy fell in love with a girl called Sucharita who was from a family which followed Brahmo Samaj. Now at that time it was taboo because Brahmo Samaj was supposed to be an imagination of Christian ideologies, and if seen in religion wise it was the Christians who were invading India. So a lot of incidents happen, and due to some very unfortunate things, Binoy has to marry Sucharita's sister Lolita, and Sucharita goes on to marry Horan Babu, the antagonist of the story. Horan Babu is like the dog, it's like a dog for the Britisher. He's extremely loyal and will do anything he can in his power to please them so that he could get higher up in the ranks. He even finds loophole in Hindu structure so that he can tolerate and torture the lower classes. Now there are a lot of incidents, and I can't express this enough. Go read it. It's beautiful. But I'll come to the most interesting part. Gora, as we later find out, is from an Irish English descendancy, which means he's a Christian blood, and which explains his thought and imagination on why his father didn't allow him to touch his feet. Now there are a lot of things that happen, like Gora, how he goes to a Muslim nomadic village, how he becomes a nomad, and everything which is a must read. But I'll explain it what it tells. Religion. It's present everywhere except for some countries. It is the true factor that drives every people. It sectors them to fight each other. Do you know why? It's because a person believes that their made up story is better than another person's made up story. And to prove that, they would even kill that person and destroy his house. This war on religion, on whose is better, whose is worse, has caused millions of damage in property, millions of lives lost, and more than that, it has also caused, here in India obviously, two great countries to form, which later on became the enemies of India. Now, the next poem, more of a song I would like to tell about, is called Omar Desher Mati by Rabindranath Tagore. Just now I talked about religion, and Omar Desher Mati is a song written in 1905 by Rabindranath Tagore in protestance to the partition of Bengal. West Bengal, it's a state in India, and before it was partitioned into West Bengal and Bangladesh, it was a whole together, it was a state. It was partitioned by the Muslim community because they wanted a place of their own, and the British were keen on the idea of divide and rule. So what they did, they divided Bengal. It became West Bengal and East Bengal. East Bengal as in reference to Pakistan owning that area. But after in 1972, it got its own country, it became Bangladesh. But the main thing that actually I wanted to say is religion is the reason why Bangladesh was formed. Religion is the reason why Pakistan was formed. Pakistan is full of Muslims and India is full of Hindus, and during the freedom struggle in 1947, Gandhiji said that all Muslims would go to Pakistan and all Hindus should come to India, which also led to his assassination. But mainly, religion is a main problem, and the government is not taking steps to address it properly. Now, I'm talking about religion, which is mainly applicable to India, but there are a lot of things such as racism in other Western countries. These are some important things that the government should notice, because if they can save lives as well as properties. And yeah, now let me recuperate what Omar Desher Mati was. So Omar Desher Mati, this song, a passive protest against the Bengal partition, and was a grim reminder to all the Bengali brothers and sisters to think that they would forever be separated. This song starts with the narrator bowing his head to his motherland. He says that his motherland is his heart, his body and his soul. He is also one of the first person to use the line that a person is born in his native land, his motherland, and also dies in his motherland. He also laments at the end of the song how God didn't give him enough power to save his mother from being divided and hence therefore destructed. Now this song, I just told what it meant. It meant that destruction, division, especially partition on the basis of religion is bad. It has caused countless of people's lives lost. There were aggressions of Hindus fighting Muslims and Muslims fighting Hindus, and these are obviously topics I'm talking about here in India, but there have been religious wars all over the world, crusades, everything. We should really address the situation on why religion is not a good thing. And to think that Rabindranath wrote it in 1905, so many years before, almost like he was predicting the future. Now I could go on and on about his stories, his poems, his songs, novels, etc. But still, I would like to end it because I couldn't even complete all of his even if I had a lifetime of my own. So instead, I would like to end it with his most beautiful work of art. The work of art in which he pleaded all of his mind, all of his emotions, everything he had put into that book. The name of the book, Gitanjali. Gitanjali in English offerings can be known as the offerings of song in its English translation. It is a collection of 157 songs which mainly discuss about the conversations of a man and a god. Now, I can't express it, but this was when he reached his final. He maxed himself because he was one of those poor parents who witnessed the death of their own children. He was also lucky to be able to be surrounded with luscious landscape. So, in the book, we find poems consisting of the beauty of nature, and the second poem we'll find is about the dull night void of death. In this poem, we find about how he's talking to God, how he's pleading not for earthly pleasures, but for the safety of his brothers and sisters. How in each and every of his book, he passively protested against them. And now let me tell you about the effect of words. This book was, if taken bluntly, is a protest against the Britisher. The Indian Society in England translated the book in English. The people loved it so much that it received a Nobel Prize in literature posthumously. But what I'm trying to tell is Rabindranath wrote a book against the Britisher. It was translated by them, it was read by them, it was enjoyed by them, and they gave Rabindranath the Nobel Prize for writing a book against them. Ironic, isn't it? This shows the true power of words, how important it is to be the master of your words, to know what you say. Because, as we must all know, there are great orators in the world, and those orators have a great chance in controlling people than people who are strong or smart. Now, I have to likely end my speech about his great works and arts today on Puchishe Baisakh, as we call it, or Rabindra Jayanti, the day he was born. I have to end my speech, and it's sad because I could go on and on about his work of art. But before ending, I would like to complete it with the best song which I think of in the book Gitanjali, called Where the Mind is Without Fear by Rabindranath Tagore. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free, where the world has not yet been broken into narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches its hands towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the deity as the sand of dead habit, when the mind is led forward by thee into ever-widening thought and action, into the heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. Jai Hind, and thank you very much.